The National Security and Defense Council has approved resilience plans for all Ukrainian regions and cities except Kyiv. This was announced by Volodymyr Zelensky following the meeting of the National Security and Defense Council. Kyiv did not submit a resilience plan for consideration by the Security Council. The president has given the capital one more week. Volodymyr Zelensky believes that the city authorities are not fulfilling the task of effectively protecting energy facilities and critical infrastructure. This statement was made after the conclusion of the National Security and Defense Council meeting, where a plan was approved for preparing for the upcoming winter and protecting infrastructure amid ongoing Russian attacks on these facilities. The president emphasized that it is necessary to prepare for the next winter in time so that every city and community is ready for any scenario. The government, and in particular the Ministry of Defense and the Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, have already received the necessary tasks and will help the regions prepare.
Today, out of all the regions, only the capital's plan remained unprotected. There is 1 week. Today, at the meeting of the National Security Council, I asked of defense so that every person is responsible for what they will do. If the plan is not protected, the capital will face the same winter. We are working on air defense. There may not be enough of it. And because of the challenges we are seeing today in the Middle East, due to the war, there may be a shortage of air defense systems. And our people, if the war does not end, must be confident that they will have electricity with all the challenges. But they need to know this. We all really need to put in the work, rather than just saying that it is completely impossible.
And following the results of the National Security and Defense Council meeting, First Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Energy Denis Shmyhal announced that the government plans to contract a reserve of equipment for restoring energy facilities that is 3 times larger than what was destroyed by Russia this winter. Raising funds and sourcing equipment will be the task of the next Energy Ramstein meeting. Among the measures approved today are resilience plans for cities, second and third level protection for critical infrastructure facilities, and accelerated development of cogeneration to provide heating and electricity. Russian attacks, the official says, have destroyed 2/3 of electricity generation. Only 10 gigawatts remain out of the 32 that Ukraine generated before the start of the full-scale invasion. Over 70% of Shaheds in February were shot down by interceptor drones. This refers to the capital and the surrounding areas. It is the so-called small air defense systems that now play a key role in destroying Russian drones. Despite severe frosts and a small number of interceptors, writes Commander-in-Chief Syrsky, the drones have not reduced the number of successful flights. In just 1 month, they flew more than 6,000 missions, during which they destroyed over 1,500 Russian UAVs. The Commander-in-Chief says that the armed forces of Ukraine are currently working on a new tactic for using drones at extremely low altitudes. And more crews are being trained to pilot them, and new air defense divisions are being formed. At dawn, the occupiers attacked the Poltava region. Fragments of enemy drones injured 4 people. And in the Odessa region, a port was targeted. Warehouses were damaged. People survived. The number of victims in Druzhkivka, Donetsk region has risen to 17. 3 more people have died. The day before, the occupiers hit a car with an FPV drone in which a woman and 4 men were traveling. All of them suffered mine explosive and shrapnel wounds. Later, the Russians dropped 5 aerial bombs on the city. At least 7 apartment buildings, private houses, a pharmacy, a bank, a post office, and shops were destroyed. A woman and 2 men sustained injuries incompatible with life, and more than a dozen others were wounded. The Russians also directed drones at Sumy. A 13-year-old child was wounded there. A passenger minibus was also hit. A 60-year-old woman was injured. She received first aid from the driver. In the city, private houses, an apartment building, a car wash, and a hotel were damaged. In the Seredino-Butska community, 2 civilians were injured due to Russian shelling. In Zaporizhzhia region, the Russians dropped aerial bombs on Orikhiv. There, they wounded a pensioner and attacked Komishuvaka. Rescuers pulled a woman out from under the rubble. She survived. 2 more civilians were injured. In Kharkiv at night, debris from enemy drones fell in the Shevchenkivsky district, smashing cars and windows in apartment buildings. And the day before, a Russian Molnia struck a residential building. 3 people were injured. In the Chuhuiv community, a critical infrastructure facility came under attack. In Borova, it was a school, and in Buri, the power grids. The Middle East. Currently, about 250,000 Ukrainians are in the region, and these are mostly residents. But there are also tourists, according to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine has received 45 requests. Most of these are requests for assistance with rebooking hotels or flights. This was reported to TSN by Konstantin Vorona, deputy head of the Consular Protection Department of the Consular Service Department. He says that the consulates and embassies in the Persian Gulf countries are working almost around the clock. Citizens can call the hotline or submit a request via a Google form. Employees of the diplomatic missions will respond to it. Currently, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is working on possible response scenarios. If conditions are favorable, further evacuation is not ruled out. In the meantime, Ukrainians are urged to follow official information on the embassy pages and, in case of any issues, to contact the 24-hour hotline of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine at +38 044 238 1588.
Our embassy just today in the morning posted a Q&A with the most common questions from our citizens, of which about 800 have been received by our institutions in the Emirates in the recent period. And I urge our citizens who are there to monitor the embassy's website for up-to-date information that will help them.
Iranian attacks. The Gulf countries have reported how many missiles and drones they have already intercepted. The Emirates, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar have been issuing their reports since the start of the US-Israeli operation. Since the weekend, the Gulf countries have intercepted 518 ballistic missiles and 1,129 drones. The main strikes against Iran are still ahead, and it will not tire of this war. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, stated the day before that his epic fury, this is what the Americans have called their operation in Iran, has only just begun and is proceeding ahead of schedule. But since the American leader was elected on slogans of isolationism and non-interference in foreign conflicts, questions are already arising about how long all this will actually last and why American soldiers are dying again. TSN's own correspondent in the USA, Olha Koshelenko, will continue the story.
The US and Israel are intensifying their strikes on Iran. President Donald Trump has warned a bigger wave of attacks is ahead, and he will not tire of this war, which, according to his forecasts, could last 4 to 5 weeks. The American leader has not even ruled out the possibility of a ground operation, since his stated goal is not only the destruction of nuclear weapons and ballistic missile facilities, but also regime change. Ayatollah Khamenei and numerous leaders of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps are dead. Trump called on Iranians, once the shelling stops, to take to the streets and seize power for themselves.
Someone said today, well, the president will want to do everything very quickly because soon he'll get bored. I won't get bored. There's nothing boring about this. Do you agree, Pete? I don't think this is boring, General. There's nothing boring about this.
At the same time, the US has released its own list of casualties. According to official data announced the day before, 6 American soldiers have already been killed. In the midst of the bombings, Trump awarded both living service members and those killed in action. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is openly furious about questions regarding why American service members are dying on foreign soil, as well as comparisons of this operation to the Iraq War, which lasted 8 years.
The media and left-wing political forces who are crying out about endless wars, stop! This is not Iraq, this is not endless. I took part in both operations. This is different. This operation is clear, devastating, a decisive mission.
Iran will soon run out of resources, Hegseth promised. But for now, Tehran is using every possible means to shell the countries of the Persian Gulf, trying to draw as many countries in the region into the conflict as possible in order to put pressure on American partners in the Gulf. The Salman port in Bahrain is on fire, an oil refinery and the American embassy in Saudi Arabia are under attack. In Dubai, missiles are being shot down over the luxurious skyscrapers, and people are hiding in underground parking lots, although the official Iranian authorities deny carrying out strikes on civilian infrastructure.
Iran does not seek war. Iran does not seek escalation, but it will not give up its sovereignty either. The question facing the international community is obvious and clear. Can a powerful state attack another sovereign member of the United Nations with impunity? If the answer is yes, then the UN Charter loses its meaning. If the answer is no, then this aggression must be condemned and stopped.
Another expected step taken by Tehran is the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, through which oil was supplied. Global prices have already responded with a moderate increase for now, but the longer the strait remains closed, the more noticeable the consequences will be.
If the strait remains blocked over the next few weeks, there will undoubtedly be a very rapid reassessment of risk and prices will start rising again.
There is a lack of objective news coming from Iran. The authorities have almost completely shut down internet access in the country and are quickly regrouping, preparing to choose a new Ayatollah. The same goes for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is not easing its repressive pressure. Under such conditions, will unarmed Iranians be able to overthrow the regime, especially after the previous wave of protests was brutally suppressed, and President Trump, back in January, promised protesters that help was already on the way. But by the time it actually arrived, thousands had already died. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio cautiously calls regime change a secondary goal of the operation.
The leadership of this country does not represent the people of Iran. I think that's quite obvious from the protests you've seen. If there is anything we can do to help them in the future, we will certainly be open to it. But that is not the goal. The goal of this mission is to destroy their ballistic missile capability.
The Iranian people have lived under a religious dictatorship for the past 47 years. Footage is now coming from the country showing both mourning rallies for the deceased leadership and celebrations of the Ayatollah's killing. From Washington, United States, Olha Koshelenko, Maxim Shinkarenko, TSN 1+1.
Striking footage from Beirut. There, a passenger plane took off into the sky right as explosions were happening. This flight is operated by commercial airlines. The explosions echoing in the Lebanese capital are the result of an Israeli attack. Earlier, the Lebanese group Hezbollah carried out an attack on Israel. The Lebanese movement is a longtime ally of the Iranian regime and has entered the fighting on Tehran's side. In response, Israel is conducting an operation against Hezbollah and attacking its facilities. The conflict in the Middle East has led to massive disruptions in air travel around the world. Leading German airports alone have cancelled nearly 500,000 flights. Thousands of tourists have been stranded in airports in the Persian Gulf countries. Some of them have faced problems with accommodation. Some have been provided with temporary shelter. Last night, Emirates Airlines operated their first flights. The number of flights was kept limited, mainly to help travelers leave the country, among other reasons.
Disability turnkey, $4,600 per group. And this is already the second case this week in Vinnytsia region where doctors selling disability certificates have been detained. The two female doctors, who were partners, were found to have about 1 million hryvnias and over $200,000. The day before, investigators seized carpets made of dollars and hryvnias from a mother and son. A neurologist and a traumatologist set themselves up as a family team at the Litin hospital. When the MCK system was reformed into expert teams, the Ministry of Health explained that this would make fake disability certificates impossible due to the anonymity of case distribution and electronic document management. So where did the system fail? TSN correspondent Irina Markevich will continue the story.
That's all, right?
No more. More.
Where at?
Amidst the mess, in a village house, investigators are pulling out bundles of cash. This is the doctor's residence. The mother is a neurologist, the son is a traumatologist. Mrs. Tetiana gets confused in the family bookkeeping.
400,000 hryvnias and $57,000.
It took 3 investigators over an hour to lay out the bills. First, they spread them out like a sheet on the bed. Then they covered the carpets with them. In total, they counted $200,000 and 350,000 hryvnias. The amount of cash shown in these shots is comparable to the budget of the Litin district hospital, where the mother and son worked.
This is shock therapy.
Bondarchuk Tetiana Petrovna worked as a neurologist at this hospital for over 20 years. She was also a VLK doctor, as indicated on her office door. And if a patient chose her as their attending physician, she could provide services directly in the inpatient ward.
Her son, Andriy Bondarchuk, has 1.5 years of experience working as a trauma doctor.
They bring them to school, to kindergarten, but he came to us already as an adult professional, a specialist. The hospital needed such a specialist.
The administration speaks of this family as good specialists.
They are exceptionally professional workers, truly professional in every way, that's for sure. A significant number of patients seek treatment from them.
But colleagues shy away from the camera.
Don't film me, for heaven's sake.
But off camera, they say. The village is small. Everyone knows everything about each other.
I promised the director I wouldn't throw her under the bus, but I won't lie either. This person got exactly what they deserved.
Tetiana Bondarchuk was detained at home. Andriy Bondarchuk was taken into custody at the hospital. The family business was selling disability certificates. A man of conscription age came specifically to the traumatologist with a diagnosis of osteoporosis. He performed a series of fake examinations and then referred him to his mother.
She prepares a complete set of documents, examinations, and arranges for inpatient treatment lasting at least 10 days.
Then the mother prepares a set of documents for the expert team responsible for assessing the person's daily functioning.
A few days before the commission meeting, the doctor calls the patient and says that he needs to hand over a sum of $3,000. The patient gives the money to the doctor, who is then supposed to pass part of this money to other individuals who are currently being identified by the pretrial investigation.
During the selection of the preventive measure, Tetiana Bondarchuk denies her involvement and explains the cash found at home as follows.
This is the money that the state paid us for the death of a citizen.
Both of them were given a preventive measure of detention or bail in the amount of 266,000 hryvnias. Bail for Andriy Bondarchuk has already been posted. Tetiana, immediately after her detention, was taken to the hospital and remains in custody there. In the declaration of the 47-year-old doctor, it is stated that she receives a pension. In court, she confirmed that it is due to disability. Her son, a 27-year-old traumatologist, also receives a disability pension. Investigators suspect that this family duo systematically sold disability certificates. During searches at the son's and mother's homes, numerous medical records were seized.
Year 2025.
Fresh ones, right?
Yes, 2025.
We seized a sufficient number of medical documents belonging to other individuals, in particular males who are subject to military service.
Most likely, the mother and son had accomplices within the expert teams. This system was reformed a year ago. The MSIKs were considered the most corrupt institutions. Officials from the Ministry of Health insisted that all safeguards against fake disabilities were taken into account in the new teams. When the MSIKs were replaced by expert commissions, the main positive aspect of this reform was said to be the automatic distribution of cases. That is, the attending doctors will not know which team their patient will be assigned to. However, the case with the Lytton hospital showed that even here the system failed. Now, the corruption risks have shifted to the level of the doctors who submit cases to the expert teams because there are very few opportunities to check whether the diagnosis was fake or not during the expert's review of the case. And if the treatment was fictitious and the documents were fake, you wouldn't be able to find that out.
Unfortunately, no. The only thing is the team can later check the medical records, the presence of medical records in the e-health system, the electronic healthcare system. But as for the validity of these documents, well, indeed, the team is not protected from the possibility that the documents may not be truthful. But there is a list of diagnosis codes, conditions, where something can be written on paper one way, but when the functionality is checked, it turns out to be something completely different, and then the person receives a refusal.
In the electronic system, every doctor leaves a digital trace. If there are suspicions, a specific case can be checked.
The electronic system makes it possible to see which doctor referred which patients to a particular institution.
So, does a doctor leave some kind of digital trace?
Of course.
But this doesn't really scare doctors because the amounts of bribes have increased compared to those with the MSECs. Now, even private institutions are taking on the preparation of documents for disability.
There are private clinics, even in Vinnytsia. There is already an official service on the price list for collecting and submitting documents to OPFO for 3,000 hryvnias. This is the official price list of a private clinic.
While we were filming this story, another group of medical workers was detained in Vinnytsia region. This group included a family doctor from a private clinic who referred clients for fictitious inpatient treatment and her accomplice, the head of a city hospital department. The floor was covered with 1 million hryvnias and $200,000. For the second group, the accomplices charged almost $5,000. Irina Markevich, Andriy Romanyuk, TSN 1+1. Today in Lviv, they said their goodbyes to 28-year-old serviceman Mikhailo Stselnikov, call sign Lemberg. The defender died near Bakhmut in May 2023, but for more than 2 years he was considered missing in action. Due to the difficult situation in the combat zone, his body could not be retrieved for a long time. Only last August did the Russians hand him over to Ukraine as part of an exchange. At that time, it was not known that it was Lemberg, and just recently a DNA test confirmed his identity. The mother of the fallen defender wrote a book in his memory and also opened an art exhibition dedicated to Mikhailo. On the day of the farewell to Mikhailo Stselnikov, at the garrison church of Saints Peter and Paul, final respects were also paid to 2 other defenders, 54-year-old Stepan Sapsa and 55-year-old Ihor Parankevich. The people of Lviv welcomed the warriors on their knees. According to city tradition, a farewell ceremony was also held at Rhinox Square.
We honorably bid farewell to all our brothers and sisters who gave their lives defending our country, including Lemberg. May his memory be bright. I have great respect for every defender who gave their life and for those who are now fighting on the front line.